Well, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is the Olin graduate programs, and today we are going to talk a little bit about our financial services that we offer here at the Olin Business School. So at this time, we are going to be joined by our lovely presenter, Kyle Cronin, who currently serves as the Associate Director of Graduate Programs and Financial Services.
Hello, everyone.
So before we get started, just so you all know, all of you have been muted to reduce any of the background noise. So if you are having difficulty hearing us, please raise your hand now or send a message in the chat box.
Looks like we're good.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, feel free to write your questions in our Q&A function, and we will try to address those at the end of our session.
Sounds great. Hello, everyone. Kyle here. I want to thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure whenever I get to speak with folks looking at the Olin Business School, and I really appreciate your time today. In my business, I always usually give like a shout out. I want to give a shout out to some of our newest recruiters here that are joining us today. They're sitting in on the webinar to learn about the processes. And they are rock stars. And we look forward to seeing you here on campus so you can be one of our Olin All-Stars. In my business, time is money. So let's go ahead and get into today's agenda. So here's a couple of key points we're going to cover. We're going to cover, basically how do you determine financial need? Needing a loan versus what you really need. How do we estimate school cost? How does tuition billing work for graduate school? Steps to apply for loans. How do I fund these? Some possible tax benefits for education. I know there's been a lot of things going on Capitol Hill. I want to give you what information we have that might prove useful. And then for anyone that has employer tuition support, we like to kind of talk about how we work through that process. Now, determining financial need, this is our first thing. I always recommend whenever someone's looking at graduate school, it doesn't matter whether you're a full-time program, a professional program, or I actually was just meeting with our executive MBA students this morning, it's important to develop that budget. And we're talking about a school budget, and that's prior to you actually getting on campus. Remember to focus on what your needs are, not necessarily your wants, okay? I have this old saying in financial aid, if you don't live like a student while you are a student, you'll be living like a student once you graduate from school. So trust me on this. Let's develop that budget that would lead to success. A couple things to think about. What resources do you have to help with school cost? Do you have any savings? Be sure to exclude any emergency funds. Are any scholarships available? Any family support? What employer tuition support programs are available if you're employed? Also, don't forget, are there 529 college plans available wherever you're located? And I would recommend using all of this information to create a financial calculator, or a financial calendar, excuse me. So with our calendar, what we want to do is we want to plan when tuition's due, plan when you have personal expenses coming due, that way we don't have surprises coming down the road. We have enough surprises in our area. I mean, I work with the Department of Education, Department of Veterans Affairs, and state government, so there's enough surprises that way. I don't like financial surprises along the way. So develop a calendar that would help you know, hey, these are when I have X bills due for the next month, or, how do I survive over break, or, other costs that come up along the way. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So estimating school costs. Now, this is an important thing to remember if you're relocating here to St. Louis, if you're in a full-time program, or even if you're, looking at schools at different locations. Remember, tuition is just one component of your total school cost. Other budget items to include would be, what fees are included, health insurance, parking, what is the cost of living in St. Louis versus your hometown. We're more relatively inexpensive than, let's say, a school on the East or West Coast. Study abroad, is that really going to benefit your school, your education, and your employment once you graduate from school? Activities, how can you be involved in the community? And can this involvement help enrich your time here during graduate school and lead to further employment? Travel expenses, books and supplies. Remember, don't forget resume paper. Do you need computer programs? Do you need a laptop? All of those things need to be pulled in whenever you're thinking about your school costs and your budget needs along the way. Now, we do have a needs determination tool available on our website. It's olin.woostel.edu. In the financial services, we have a needs determination page that would help with that. Now, with tuition billing here at campus, we work with various array of programs. I actually work with all the graduate programs here at Olin. So we have professional programs, executive, full-time, we have doctoral programs as well. But as a general rule of thumb, tuition arrangements must be made by the first day of class. So you have to develop a plan on how you're going to pay for your tuition. And usually tuition is due by the date listed on an invoice. So with this, I just want to let you know as a general highlight, for the summer semester, our invoices go out in April with a due date in May. Likewise, for the fall, they come out in July with the due date in August, September, depending on the first day of the fall semester. And then for the spring term, usually it's December with the following January. So it's those 3 billing cycles where that first invoice goes out. Now, this is helpful when you're trying to develop a plan, maybe a payment plan, or you're working with your employer to talk about how does sponsorship work. If you need an extension or you need help finalizing a plan, please contact financial services. We're happy to help. I have a team here that we work with all the graduate students at Olin. We have an open door policy unless we're doing a webinar like this or if we're meeting with another student. Talking about student loans. Now, student loans, there's usually 2 buckets of funding that I like to put things in. There's loans available for domestic students only, meaning U.S. citizens or permanent residents, or eligible non-citizens, and then there's private loans, okay? And with the private loans are available for both domestic and international students, depending on the program. Let's go through these real quickly. So with the federal student loans, they offer a fixed rate. Right now it's currently at 6% and 7% for the Stafford and Plus Loan programs. On the slide, you'll notice I have for the 2017-18 academic year. And actually for the programs that are starting, we're going to be in the 2018-19 academic year. And the Department of Education will release updated information effective July 1. So once that information is available, we will update it to our websites. There's also loan fees associated with the federal student loan programs. And with these loan fees, basically they're taken out of your loan disbursement. For example, with a Stafford loan, it provides up to $20,500 in funding each academic year of school. However, there is a 1.069% loan fee. So out of that $20,500, the net amount applied towards your tuition and fees would be $20,281. So basically, they subtract the loan fee out of the net disbursement that is received. With federal student loans, no payment is required while in school. However, interest does accrue while you're in school based on the disbursement date, a fall disbursement, a spring disbursement. If you're attending a summer, it would be a summer disbursement as well. They come with a 6-month grace period or a deferment period, depending on the program. They offer forbearance deferment options, no prepayment penalty. So, if Warren Buffett calls you and says, hey, I want to pay off all my student loans, pay them off. It's only going to save you money, okay? They offer several repayment plans, and they also have some, little metric of interest rate reduction as well. Now, private student loans. Private student loans, these are what they sound like. They're a private loan through a bank. So, a lot of lending institutions offer these. We do have a historical list of lenders available on our website at the olin.woostel.edu. These programs, as I mentioned, are available for domestic and international students. A couple of key differences. With these private loans, they have variable or fixed interest rates, and it's based on your credit history or your credit score. So it is possible for you to get a lower interest rate than what's available through the federal government with the Stafford and the Plus Loan programs. Some lenders may charge a loan fee. I would say the vast majority do not charge loan fees on these private loans. Some lenders may require payments while in school, such as interest-only payments or a $25 a month payment plan, or you can elect to have all the interest just kind of carried over and make no payments while in school. The grace periods do vary by lender. They're typically about 6 months. There are a few lenders that offer 9 months. And with regards to the forbearance and the prepayment penalties, these would all vary by lender. So be sure to look at the loan disclosures. Once again, I will say that the majority of lenders out there do not charge any type of prepayment penalty fee. Likewise, they also offer forbearance or deferments while you're in a hardship, if there's a hardship scenario or some type of payment plan available as well. Now, with the payment plans, usually these are fixed at either a 10 or 15-year amortization schedule. So basically, it is a fixed rate over 10 or 15 years. Compared to the federal programs actually have probably about 7 or 8 different types of repayment options. So you can actually choose that once you graduate from school at the end of your grace period. My general rule of thumb when looking at federal versus private student loans would be the federal student loans offer the most flexible repayment options, whereas the private student loans offer the better repayment incentives, okay? So just do your homework, do your due diligence there. If you have questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Olin Financial Services. We're happy to help. How do we apply for student loans? I have a lot of students that come in and say, well, I never apply for student loans because my parents helped me with my undergraduate school. Or, hey, I haven't been in school in 15 years, Kyle. I know the landscape has changed. Can you help us with that process? And the answer is yes. So with that, I like to tee things up so it's pretty simple. I like to do a 4-step process for each, and then we fill out the details beyond that point. For federal student loans, I do recommend you do research the available programs at studentaid.ed.gov. studentaid.ed.gov. That's the Department of Education website. You'll have a link on there where you can complete a FAFSA form. Be sure to complete the 2018-19 FAFSA application. At this point in time, the 17-18 FAFSA is out there still, but we need the 18-19 for this academic year. Third step, there's an Olin institutional application. So basically, we have an internal form we have every student fill out. And the purpose for this form is we have several questions that we would like answers to, such as if you're a professional MBA student, are you in the PMBA program? Do you have employer sponsorship? Would you like funds for books and parking or just tuition only? It allows us to gauge that type of information. Executive MBAs have their own set of questions, likewise our full-time programs as well. When you're filling out the FAFSA application, the ID number used for the application is not the Olin Business School. Please remember that it is Washington University in St. Louis. And that ID number is 002520. Once again, 002520. This is also on our website as well. And then finally, step 4 is, hey, once you do steps 1 through 3, contact financial services for the next step in the process, okay? A lot of this would depend on where you are in the application cycle. Have you placed a tuition deposit? Do you have a student record? Are you an official enrolled student at Washington University yet? And then we will let you know the next steps in the process. They usually include signing an award notification. You have to complete some online components at the Department of Education website. And then the last step, which is really difficult, is just called follow-up. Let's make sure that all the documents are in line. With private student loans, you have a little more flexibility. So you actually do not apply directly through the school. But I do recommend that you research loan programs available through the lender of your choice. We do have that historical list of lenders available on our website, but you get to choose. If you have a relationship with a local credit union and they're willing to offer a private student loan, then yes, we could do that. We're not picky. We'll certify any loan that's willing to be a private student loan. Now, these private loans are different than if you're getting a loan for, let's say, a house or a car. With private student loans, the payments are deferred while you're in school, don't forget. Whereas if you get a car loan, you have to start those payments right away. That's why there's a difference in private student loans. So the application, remember, research. Submit your application directly to the lender of your choice, okay? You can apply for up to 3 lenders within a 30-day period, and it will only be one hard hit on your credit report, okay? So when you're applying for a credit-based loan, be sure to do it within that 30-day window so you don't have multiple hits on your credit report. If you have too many hits, it can potentially lower your credit score, which would increase the cost of the loan along the way. With regards to timing of applying for these loans, I would recommend probably 60 to 90 days prior to the start of your class. So if you're starting with the fall semester, I would say 60 to 90 days prior would be the earliest I recommend you submitting your application for that private loan. Once you submit your application, please contact Olin Financial Services, that'd be us, so that we can do the school certification process. This is the part where it makes the loan deferred while you're in school, because we report this information to a clearinghouse. And then once we do our piece of the puzzle and you're duly enrolled, the lender will contact you to complete some final disclosures. There's a right to cancel your loan disclosures. There's a couple other disclosures that the lender will have you to finalize. Now, when you're applying for these loans, it's important that you have these three details. Number one, you need the loan application period. Are you applying for a fall-only loan, a spring-only loan, or a combination fall-spring loan, or a summer loan if you're enrolled in the summer semester? We need that information. You will need the loan amount. How much loan are you wanting to borrow, right? Do you want $5,000? Do you want full tuition, $10,000? You will actually need a dollar amount. And then we also need to include something called the cost of attendance. Cost of attendance includes tuition plus other expenses while associated while going to school. Room, board, books, parking, miscellaneous, other items such as that. Now, that doesn't mean you have to take a loan for that, but that represents the max amount of loan that someone can take while going through school. Another private loan that you might look or you might find on our website would be something called our Olin International Loan Program. That's for an MBA students. It's for the full-time MBA program. It's a non-cosigner loan for international applicants. The limits for that loan program are tuition minus scholarship, and details are on our website. So be sure to check that out as well. Let's go next slide. Okay, we're going to shift gears. I know we've covered a lot of ground here lately. With that, we've talked about budgeting, talked about things to include, things to think about. We talked about loans. Let's see what we could do about, are there any potential tax benefits for education? Now, I have to put the disclaimer up here because I cannot give tax advice. I can point you in the right direction, but you have to speak with someone that has a license that's bonded to do these type of things. But, with all this information, please be sure to see your tax professional or financial advisor to see if you qualify, okay? I do recommend every student looking at graduate school review a publication called the IRS Publication 970, Tax Benefits for Education. And this is a good thing to look at to see what possible benefits you might apply to your particular situation. I do recommend reading a Poets and Quants article from 2016. It's titled Tax Court Ruling, Big Win for MBAs. And the gist of this article is there was an example of a student going through an executive MBA program who deducted their tuition off their income taxes. They deducted their tuition off their income taxes. So think about that. If you deduct all your tuition, that's a pretty substantial tax savings. And it talks a little bit more about the challenge that they had from the IRS, and actually the student won. So it's a very good article. Other things to take a look into is maybe lifetime learning credits or potential student loan interest deductions. So with student loan interest deductions, it's only for the interest that is paid on student loans, not interest accrued. So if you're going through school not paying student loan interest, you can't deduct it, okay? It's only once your loans go into repayment that you can do that. There are some maximum deductions out there. Be sure to check out the latest tax regulations for specifics on that. Let's go to the next slide. And finally, employer tuition support. Now, sometimes I'll have folks that have partial support, full support. There's a lot of folks who actually have no support, so we're just doing student loans or payment plans, which is perfectly fine. But I like these presentations to kind of cover all the bases that we have a bridge or, a path to develop our financial plan of success. We have third-party billing, and this is through our Office of Student Billing or Student Accounting. And basically to set up third-party billing where your organization pays Washington University directly for tuition, we just need some documentation on company letterhead. We need your name and your student ID number, i.e. you have to be a deposited student. We would need the beginning and ending date of sponsorship, the types of charges that are willing to be covered. Is it tuition? Is it fees? Is it, tuition and fees? Specify what's there. And also, any other university required documentation, such as, hey, we need what degree program you're in, what semesters they're willing to cover, other components such as that. Now, third-party billing is where the employer pays up front. There's a part called tuition reimbursement. And this is where we have a lot of folks to where, hey, you pay for the course and then you're reimbursed by your employer, okay? So These require that you pay the tuition either via loan or via cash or whatever method you want. Then once you complete the course, you pass the course, then your employer would send you a reimbursement that we could apply towards future tuition, or you can apply towards a loan that was taken. I will say most employers accept copies of the billing statements and grade reports from our WebStack billing account. This is basically the university's general ledger. It's the portal for students to access their account summaries. However, some employers may want additional information. And if that's the case, please be sure to reach out to Olin Graduate Financial Services on that. We're happy to help with all of our graduate programs. And we want to make sure that you're not so stressed about the financials along the way that you're able to focus on your education. After all, that's why you're here. I think that's about the meat of my material here. So we're gonna open it up for some Q&A, and then we have some events coming up, and then I want to give you some closing thoughts on a recent event or a recent experience I had with some students. So
absolutely,
let's open it up for Q&A. Go ahead, David.
So thank you excuse me, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us. And all this information is very important, and we will send this webinar out to all of you all that have attended and RSVP'd, and so you will be able to look back and review this content, and it will be available on our YouTube page, which is with the Olin Business School. We did have a couple of questions just regarding like everything that you said was important about the loans and what the process is, but what about scholarships specifically for our international students? Like, are those available? What does that look like? Either across programs, MBA versus S&P and things of that nature.
Sure. So that's a very good question. I was kind of hitting to the meat to make sure we meet our goals. So with regards to institutional scholarship, our institutional scholarships are limited to our full-time programs, okay? So the professional and executive MBA programs, I'm sorry, there's no supported scholarships for those programs. But for students in the full-time programs who, leave employment and come to school full-time, all applications for admission are considered for our institutional-based scholarship. So basically when you apply, they're going to review, your transcripts, how do those look? It's based on the strength of your application, the strength of your interview, and, a lot of it goes into GMAT scores as well, or your test scores entering into class. So it's kind of like that combination of all those items together. However, remember that combination of items together this year may be different than the combination of items next year, because it's based on the average metric of the class. I can tell you, I've been at Olin, it'll be 10 years this month actually, and our metrics have risen every year. So what might be one scholarship amount one year could be a different scholarship amount the next year based on the content of the class and the strength of the applications of the other folks in the pool. So that's a very good question. Now, for folks in professional MBA and executive MBA, and this also works for full-time students as well, you might look into outside scholarships, okay? So with these outside scholarships, we have a couple helpful links on our financial services websites. I recommend that you take a look, because if you don't apply, then the answer is no already. But usually I have seen some students receive scholarships between $3,000 and $5,000. Actually, last year I had a student receive a $10,000 scholarship. And this student was actually a professional MBA student and received the scholarship to his final semester in school. So he'd been applying for 7 semesters and got no's. And then, finally, his final term, he got $10,000. So I think there's something to be said there. You have to do your research. You have to be willing to do the work, because these are not going to just come to you for free. You have to put some effort into it. But, $10,000 is $10,000. So that is something I do encourage you to actively pursue these. Put it on your quarterly reminder, whatever it is, and then make sure that you're keeping on top of those items and see if you can get any type of free money that comes in.
Great, thank you. So the next question we had is should be fairly an easy one. I think someone was kind of wondering if you could provide more information on what exactly a forbearance is, specifically, with the loans.
Sure. So I actually took a forbearance, I would say probably about 10 years ago. Essentially, a forbearance is, let's say that you're graduated school and that you're going to have problems making your payments. Either, hey, my job doesn't start for 2 months, or in my case, I was downsized by a company. So the forbearance, I contacted my lender directly, And then the lender actually gave me a 6-month period where I did not have to make payments on my loans. Okay. Now interest accrued on this loan and it was capitalized at the end of the 6 months, but it's either, pay my rent and food and get food, or have no food or a place to live and pay my loan. So they gave me a 6-month forbearance. Now, something different between a forbearance and an in-school deferment. Okay. Forbearances last, and there's a limited amount of forbearances you can get. It's usually, I think, probably about 2. And it has to be a hardship case in which you're approved this forbearance. In-school deferment, okay? In-school deferment means, hey, I'm currently enrolled in a degree-seeking program, and if you're in-school deferment, your loans are deferred for the entire period. As long as you maintain enrollment, you don't have to renew that every 6 months. You do it at the beginning of your program, once your classes start, and let's say if you're in the 2-year full-time MBA, your in-school deferment will last all 2 years of that MBA program. So those are 2 things to think about when going through. I actually just canceled a student yesterday about forbearance, and we keep our doors open for alums. I still have alums from 5 or 10 years ago that might give me a call, and we open that up for anyone that comes to the Olin Business School. Very good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So kind of on the same lines of the loans, what have you seen kind of with your 10 years here at the Olin Business School, some of the, what you would say is the average interest rate for students?
So, honestly, the interest rates do vary. It's all subject to the U.S. Department of Education. What are the prevailing rates charged on student loans? Because these are actually determined by the average sale of Treasury securities, okay? So, for instance, right now the rates are 6% and 7%. Last year the rates were 5.31 and 6.31. Okay. And then, there's been some years, actually, I would say probably 5-6 years ago, the Stafford rate was 6.8 and the plus loan was 8.5. So the rates are actually lower than what they have been historically, but it's all determined by the average sale of Treasury securities. So with regards to average rates on the loans are determined by the Department of Education. With regards to private student loans, honestly, with private student loans, whenever someone is approved for a private student loan, they do not communicate the interest rate to me as the school official that signs off on that, okay? So a lot of times I do have students come to me and say, yeah, I got a loan at 7%, for example, or I got a loan at 6.5%. So that person would choose not to do the federal loans. They went ahead with the private student loans. I've had some students get variable rates at maybe 4.25 or 3.75. It really depends on the credit history. Depends on things that are, that I don't see. That's by the lending institution, and what they plan on doing. Now, don't forget that the Federal Reserve Bank has talked about increasing rates. The benchmark rate 3 times this year. They've already done it once. Okay, so a lot of these private loans, they use some fixture of that goes into their formula. So the higher that benchmark rate, the higher the LIBOR is going to be, the 1-month LIBOR or whatever they're using for that. So be sure to play that in mind when you're thinking about the variable interest rates or the fixed interest rates. Now, I will say whenever a student is looking at choosing, let's say you decide you want to go with a private loan rather than federal. That's what you're most comfortable with. You offer a variable or a fixed interest rate. The choice then would be, okay, what is your repayment horizon for this loan? If this loan is going to be paid off relatively quickly, probably within the next 3 to 4 years, then I would say probably, the variable rate would probably be best because the rate's not going to increase that much to where it exceeds the fixed rate term. However, if we're thinking about a 10-year repayment or a 15-year repayment schedule, who knows where rates are going to be at that point in time. So I would recommend maybe going with a fixed rate. For what it's worth, I have student loans. Speaking from experience here, all my loans have fixed interest rates. I like to know what I'm going to pay, okay? That way it allows me to plan out which ones I'm going to pay off quicker, okay? Pay off the highest interest rate first. That way it saves you money on the long haul. So I kind of take that total view of not just going through school, also while you're in school, but also payment upon graduation from school while you're earning money and trying to balance family and all the other things of life that come along.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kyle. So our next question kind of talks specifically about students who may be receiving a sponsorship from their companies, and knowing that that may cover their educational expenses or their tuition expenses. But what are some of the other kind of expenses that they could expect to see in regards to either deposits or health insurance? Just really, what do those additional fees look like at Olin?
Sure. So really, we try not to have any hidden fees here along the way. So everything, the most up-to-date fees are actually on our website. That includes student health insurance, our anticipated health and wellness fees, activity fees, and all items like that. We have them posted on our website. They've been updated at olin.wooster.edu. So I'd actually recommend that you take a look at those there, because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. But we went through and updated all the information there. The only thing that will not be posted there that's subject to, depending on what classes you take, would be occasionally along the way, we do have some things called lab fees, or if you're doing special things along the way. So like a lab fee would be something associated with a particular class. For example, if an instructor pulls in a Harvard case for you, and we have to pay for the copyrights for that, you have to pay for the copyrights of that. So that cost is passed on to you. So if there's certain books or materials or other things like that we have to pay a licensing fee for, that's not in a textbook per se, that can appear on your student account, but that's dependent on the course, and it also varies by the instructor, because every instructor is going to have their own methodology they use to teach a course, whether it be supply chain, whether it be finance, whether it be sample case studies, where they might be along the way. So those might be some incidentals, but we're not talking hundreds of dollars. We're talking $15, $20, maybe $50 at a whack at the most on that. If you have that type of stuff, they will let you know on the syllabi, on the syllabus that you get, that will list, hey, you're going to have these courses along the way. These are the things that we're going to have along the way. And the instructor should make an announcement in class, hey, this is a case study. This is how this is going to be built.
Great, thank you. So you talked a little bit about the tuition reimbursement, but what about loan forgiveness? Have you seen where employers or a specific sector offers that loan forgiveness for students after they graduate?
Sure. So with regards to loan forgiveness, that's kind of I will tell you that's a big pot there to think about. So with potential loan forgiveness, I have had there's been, for example, some international students, they went to work for certain companies to where the company would actually offer an institutional loan to pay off their Olin international loan. Okay, that's been an example. And while that person worked for that organization over a period of years, part of that loan was forgiven. So that was part of their guaranteed employment contract. Hey, you work for us X years, we'll forgive this amount of loan. Don't forget that whenever a loan is forgiven, it is a taxable event according to the IRS. So you would actually get a 1099 for any amounts of loans that are forgiven. The only exception to that would be for folks who take federal student loans and work in the nonprofit sector. Okay, if you go to the financial aid website, the Department of Education website that was previously mentioned, studentaid.ed.gov, look up Public Service Forgiveness Program. And with that program, it gives details about how you would apply for public service, what is qualifying employment, and also with that PSLF program, the loan is forgiven and it is not a taxable event for the student. So that's something to bear in mind, especially if you're looking in the nonprofit industry, 501c3 organizations, any type of government work, whether it be federal, state, local, municipal, all these type of employment opportunities qualify for that particular program.
Great, thank you. You are just so helpful for us today. The other question I kind of have really quickly that came up a couple of times was the whole idea of transportation here in St. Louis. And I know it's not specifically related to financial aid, but does the university or does Olin offer a public transportation card or things like that in regards to including it in the fees of being a student here?
So it's my understanding that every student can actually get a free Metro Pass as part of that. So they can use our MetroLink system. They have buses. They also have a MetroLink train that you can do. There are some, the university does own some apartment complexes and things like that to where you can actually walk to school as well. However, if you have a car and you want to drive to campus, You do have to pay for your parking pass, and the parking passes here, I would tell you, are not cheap. They're quite expensive, rather. I have to pay that. I pay it just like every student pays. But you can get a parking pass to where you can park on campus if that's what you choose to do. So you can do buses, you can walk to campus, you can bike to campus. If you live far enough away and you want to actually drive to campus, there is parking available at the various parking structures available on campus.
Great. And I just have a couple of more questions to ask Kyle. So in regards to the interest rates again, so we want to go back there. I see a lot of our participants asking about interest rates, specifically our international population and what that could look like for them. And I know that you talked about the 6% versus the 7%, but a lot of the questions are more about, if they don't have credit, as an international applicant, could that affect their interest rate?
So the answer to that would be yes. Okay. So for the loans, if you're an international applicant looking at a private student loan, a lot of the private agencies will require that you have some type of U.S. cosigner for that program. So with that, not having credit, but it would be dependent on your cosigner's credit. Now, the different lending institutions may have different requirements. So, for example, some agencies may allow permanent residents to be a cosigner. Some agencies may require that you be a U.S. citizen only to cosign a loan. And then, some agencies may not care as long as somebody's domiciled here in the U.S. But it would all be dependent on the riskiness of that loan, because remember, risk goes into interest rates, and then the creditworthiness of that borrower. Now, that's for international students. One thing I want to pull in, I mentioned that we do offer an international loan program. It's a non-cosigner loan program. The interest rate on that is fixed at 10%, okay? So the interest rate, it's been 10% since we launched the program about 9 years ago. So that's our standard rate for that program. Remember, there's no prepayment penalty, there's no fees. And additional information is available on that on our website. So be sure to check that out at olin.wustl.edu.
Great. And I just realized we did not even talk about work study, or if that is available for students. So maybe can you just touch really briefly on if there is work study or assistantships or things available for our students while they are studying here at Olin?
Sure. So with work study, now, the thing to remember is work study, when you look, they'll say something called federal work study. Now, federal work study means that you have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident and qualify for federal aid to participate in these federal work study programs. This is a need-based program that some students have. Now, that doesn't mean if you're an international student that you can't find employment on campus. You just have to be sure to check out with the International Student Office, hey, is it reasonable for me to work here on campus? And you also have to find an organization that's willing to hire you and support your payroll during that process. But we have had international students work here on campus. With regards to graduate assistantships, okay, we do not have graduate assistantships in the true form as in, hey, it comes with a tuition remission or anything along those lines. Those type of programs are limited to our PhD students. However, some instructors will hire students to be, an assistant for them to help grade papers, to help put things together for presentations. These are part-time positions funded by faculty. Okay, so it comes from a separate pool of money, and it's my understanding that you would have to approach each faculty member individually to see if they need a grad assistant for that term. It's our expectation that you probably have to have some expertise in that area. For example, if you know finance, then you would need to, probably a finance person would work. But, to work for a supply chain professor, you may need to know about supply chain or done well in that course example. To be able to go through that. So you have to have some baseline on that. I will tell you that we're working to maybe try to streamline that faculty assistant type of process a little bit with our dean's office. So hopefully details will be available once you arrive to campus. I do need to tell everybody that if you're in our full-time programs, you're now allowed to work the first semester you're here. You're enrolled in core classes. It's a lot of credit hours. We want you to get acclimated to being here at school because, it's very hard. It's difficult. They're going to challenge you in different ways. So we make sure that your attention is focused there. The other thing I will say about the senior administration is whenever you come to grad school, it's important, example, with our full-time MBA, you're here for the first year, they want you to focus on getting that internship, right, between your first year and your second year. And that internship can hopefully lead to an employment post-graduation from school. So keep your eye on the prize. While you're here at school, understand, hey, I would like to work, I'd like to earn some money, I'd like to do some stuff to help lower the costs. But don't earn that money at the cost of you getting a job upon graduation from school. That job post-graduation from school is going to pay a lot more than any type of part-time job on campus here ever will, okay? So keep your eye on the prize, make sure that it's going to help your career over the long term, okay? I understand you have to have money for food or things like that along the way, but keep your eye on the prize. Long-term planning is the most important thing, and in financial services, that's what we call, develop our game plan for success. I'm willing to meet with every student. Hey, these are my expenses. These are what I have. This is a shortfall. Any ideas? Think about that. Put that budget together, and then let's talk. Let's see what would be available and what would be realistic for you.
Great.
Good question.
How are you feeling, Kyle? Are you?
I'm good.
You're good. You're good. All right.
I'm bringing it.
I thank you so much for your time. We do have some other questions on the floor regarding the more information about the college plan, the 529 college plan.
Mm-hmm.
You talked a little briefly about that, but can you kind of go over what that looks like, or if it is available specifically for international students?
So the college 529 plan. It's my understanding that would not be available for international students because you're not paying U.S. taxes. Okay, so these college savings plans, you have to be employed here in the U.S. and it has to be a tax saving mechanism there. Now the thing with 529s, let's say if you are, here on a H-1B visa and you are paying taxes, I would check with the institution administrating the College 529 plan to see if that works. Every state has their own 529 plan. So once again, that's an area just to look into. Check with a financial planner or some type of financial broker, as they would have more information about that process than I would. I do know they exist. I have a couple of 529 set up for my children, for them going through school, but I am nowhere near the expert on that area. My expertise is with federal student loans, working private student loans, and helping students get through college. So, but I at least want to put it out there. Likewise, I can't talk about the tax stuff, or I'm not an expert on that, but I at least want to give you information to look at and see if that helps with your game plan at all.
Great. Thank you. I did have a question on the floor regarding if you could clarify the tuition, and is it billed out by semester or by credit? Like, how does the fluctuation change as far as the pricing?
Sure. So with our full-time programs, it's actually a flat rate tuition that's paid over each semester of the program. So let's say, for example, a tuition is $60,000 and you're in a full-time program. Your fall semester tuition would be $30,000. Your spring semester tuition would be $30,000. So it's split into two payments. If you're in our professional MBA program, that program is actually per credit hour, okay? So the amount of tuition would vary depending on how many courses you registered in. For every incoming professional MBA student, your first semester you're enrolled in 7 credits, okay? For your second semester, you're enrolled in 6.5 credits. Now, it might be possible to take more credits than this, but you have to speak with an advisor. Because remember, when you're coming into program, we want you to get acclimated. We want you to build the network. We want you to be able to focus on the things and do extremely well in these courses. And we don't want you stressed out about, hey, how I'm going to survive stats, how I'm going to survive, econ or some other courses like that. Everyone is going to have a course that's going to challenge them in a different way. Right? So, if you're a marketing person who doesn't like accounting, guess what? Everybody has to take accounting, okay? If you're an accountant, you don't like marketing, guess what? Everybody has to take marketing. So be sure to plan accordingly when you're developing your schedule. We have academic advisors that are happy to help you with that. And we're not here to bring you down. We're not here to make you fail. We're here for you to succeed, but realize where your core strengths are, okay? And use those strengths to develop those competencies in other areas to get you employed once you graduate from school. That's the most important thing.
Great. Well, thank you. At this time, I don't believe we have any other questions, but if we do, we will send out our scheduling link. So
just click over to the next slide here. I want to I want to make sure everybody knows that we have some upcoming events coming on here. And so we have some more webinars coming up. So, you know, this is pretty easy. You just log in and get the link and visit. So we have a Military at Olin webinar. Actually, I work with all the military students at the Olin Business School, helping with GI Bill and stuff. So if you have questions, let me know about that process. We have international opportunities. We have a couple of info sessions, and we also talk about our research centers, the things that make Olin different, okay? You see the dates, you see the times. Hopefully you can join one of those. I do encourage, if you're able to come into town, we have a PMBA for a day. It's on, you know, it's coming up on the 21st. And this PMBA for a day session is a great opportunity to see what it's like here at Olin, to get a feel for the culture, you know, see what it's like to be a professional MBA student and why that's different than other programs. We also have a preview day coming up on May the 12th where you have some sample case studies. You get the network, you get to meet other folks looking at the program, and hey, this is building your network right away. So I always encourage whenever somebody comes by, if you come to campus, you have homework, right? What is your homework? Your homework is to bring yourself, to bring your card, and to start networking. Networking is the key for you, for your career over the long haul. And networking is what we like at Olin. We have the Olin family is what we call it. And we live by that. So, you know, as part of the family, it's important to take those business cards, to meet new people, invite them to LinkedIn. This is your network. This is what's going to help you for the rest of your career. You never know. The person that's sitting next to you in preview day might be CEO of a company sometime that, you know, 15 years down the road, hey, you know, here's an opportunity at your job, and he may want to recruit you. Likewise, you might be the CEO and meet somebody that they come to you. That's how this works. We do have some application deadlines coming up for PMBA. This is application for admission, I assume, on this? Okay. So the application deadlines for PMBA, April 2nd, 18. And then we have the MBA and our specialized master's coming up on April the 10th. So those deadlines are coming up. I will let you know for financial aid purposes, as far as student loans and things like that, we actually don't have deadlines for graduate students. So the most important thing I would recommend is that you focus on your application for admission, okay? Because if you're not admitted, I can't help you anyway. So be sure to go through the admissions process, you know, put forward, learn more about Olin, research the programs, do everything you can on that. I'm kind of looking at the time, we're at 12:47. I do want to share just a quick thought, if I may, on something that just happened recently. I was attending a graduation, and this was actually an executive MBA student who graduated. And we were celebrating the graduation. Well, he came by the office. He actually brought his father, and he brought both his sons in. So I got to actually meet 3 generations of a family that went through graduate school or going through school, and they were using these programs that we just went over. They used some military, they used some student loans, they used some private loans, they used some employer payment options. And so with that, these programs have been around for, you know, probably better than 60 years, okay? So I know with the news, with the media, you hear a lot of the sky is falling per se, or wherever it might be, but these programs have been around, and they should be around whenever you go to grad school, okay? They weathered the storm of many generations, of many different political arenas, and they are solid sources of funding for graduate education. So keep your eye on the prize. Because that, when I think about it, I had 3 generations of a family in my office. They're all doing school using these programs. Think about the legacy that that has created. Likewise, when you decide to come to graduate school, hopefully Olin's your top choice. Make the decision that's best for you, but also remember that you're creating a legacy that's going to pay generations going forward. You're setting the example for the other ones that follow you in your family, your community, and the world, okay? So good luck to you. Good luck with the application process. Is there anything I missed, Karen?
Nope. We would like to thank you. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to Olin Grad Admissions at worcester.edu, and we can either point you to Kyle or any of our recruiters in the office. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Everyone have a great day and enjoy your weekend. Take care.